Hey there, it's Melissa Benaroya with Childproof Parenting Live. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as promised, we are going to talk about the blog post I put out last week that many of you reacted to and had questions about. And I actually had Stephanie post something to the blog post, and I wanted to respond to her here today. And I also actually posted her response, which I'm not sure she saw on the blog, so I wanted to make sure she got this. So Stephanie's question was, what would you suggest as a logical consequence for a child that is physically harming the parent? And this is a great question. What I first want to note is that the age of the child makes a really big difference in determining how we respond, because the age of the child also determines what is probably underneath and driving that behavior. And so the scenario when this happened and what prompted it and their age makes a significant difference. But I still want to answer this question in whole. So looking at this question, I think if, Stephanie, your child was between the ages of 1 and 6, it's really important to remember that their brain is in hyperdevelopment mode, that there are connections that have not been made yet. So they tend to be very reactive and impulsive because they don't have that impulse control built just yet. So being mindful of that piece. I think knowing that this type of behavior is developmentally appropriate, that they are reactive, can help us better understand what's going on and help us to stay calm, because it's very easy for us to escalate in those moments, right? We talked in previous Facebook Lives about mirror neurons and how we replicate the emotional state of others. So being mindful that if they're being reactive and impulsive and emotional, that we need to be mindful that we don't start replicating that emotional reaction. I think also being mindful that all behavior is purposeful and that there is something underlying this behavior. And for most young kids, it's either number one, they want attention and they don't have positive ways of seeking your attention. And number two, they are looking for a way to feel a sense of power and control, because young kids and the rest of us throughout life are looking to feel a sense of power and control. And young kids, when they feel like they don't have control, they act out and they try to get a reaction from us, because that can feel really empowering and powerful to them. So being mindful that what is underneath this behavior is going to help you figure out, number one, if a logical consequence or a natural consequence is an appropriate response, and if so, which one you should use in this scenario. So one thing I want to note is that emotion coaching may actually be a better response in some of these scenarios. I know a lot of people want to go right to consequences, like what's the consequence for this? And I want to remind you that there are lots of different ways that we can respond to our children's behavior. It's not just about consequences. And yes, in using logical and natural consequences, there are opportunities for teaching, but there are definitely other ways we can teach children and how to recognize their emotion, how they can express them more positively and get their needs met. So really young kids don't even have an awareness of what they want or what they need. They're just reacting to that impulse. And I think the first step for us as parents is helping them understand what they actually wanted and needed and how they can express that in a more positive, socially acceptable way. So that's a big piece of the puzzle that I don't think we really want to miss, because that makes a huge difference. So if we were to choose to use a logical or a natural consequence, I think the one that makes the most sense, that I hear over and over, that is powerful and gets the response eventually that parents want, is just drawing your attention away from them. Because if we immediately go to them and talk to them, they're learning that if I want mom's attention, I can do this, and I immediately get her attention. And this comes up a lot when there is a younger sibling, right? Because the younger sibling oftentimes is a little more helpless and needs mom and dad's attention. So this is a great way to get mom's attention or dad's attention away from little brother or sister and right on me. So being mindful that we don't give them, we're not ignoring them, but we withdraw. We don't give them lots of interaction. Now, if you really were hurt, you may just need to leave the situation. Once again, teaching them that this isn't going to get me to come and connect with you. I actually need to take care of myself and keep myself safe. So maybe you go and get an ice pack, or you just need some space to calm down so you don't react. Once again, that will teach them that was not a great way to get mom's attention. So your choices and reaction actually do the teaching, and you are not shaming them. You're not doing anything to make them feel bad. This is just what naturally happens. And if it's you, it's great, but they're going to learn this with other people as well. If they hit a friend on the playground, the friend is out of there. They're not going to want to play with them, right? And that's the natural consequence. The friend doesn't say, I'm taking my toys and I'm going away because I'm going to teach you a lesson. No, they just withdraw. And that's how kids learn. They learn from their experiences. So I think, Stephanie, if I had more information about what it was that was driving this behavior, how old your child is, I could probably answer it more completely. So if you want to share that and you're here, great, that would be fantastic. But I also wanted to add that Jen M also added a little bit, and there are a few things that she shared that I thought were really powerful and were things that I probably would say too, and I'm so glad she said it. So one logical consequence in that situation could be that you request your child to get you an ice pack and care for you, or maybe they get you a Band-Aid that they actually need to repair. And sometimes just having that logical consequence of repair or asking for forgiveness is a teaching moment, because that naturally may have a feeling of feeling embarrassed or ashamed. Not that we're doing anything to make them feel embarrassed or ashamed, but when we apologize, sometimes we don't feel so great about it. So giving them that opportunity to repair and mend the situation with you, if that's the case. She had another great idea that I like, and I think we need to develop it more, but she said for older kids, one thing that you can ask them to do is put some good back into the world by either helping you or helping others as a way of repair. So she is suggesting that your child find an opportunity to do something nice for others, to care for others as a way to put good back into the world, that we've got to balance these things. And then she said, finally, asking your child to find words to tell you their feelings rather than using their bodies to show you their feeling also seems logical and teaches them how to understand themselves and how to interact with others. So I agree. I don't know if that's necessarily a consequence, but I definitely think it's a teaching moment where we can help children translate that emotion, that reaction, into a verbal dialogue where we can give them words, where we can practice with them, right? If we just tell them you can't do that or you don't do that, we don't give them what they need to do in those scenarios. And what they do is they just go back to the aggressive physical response of communicating what they need or how they're feeling. So hopefully that answered. I appreciate Jen M for jumping in. I think she had some great ideas, and I love it when all of you choose to jump in and support one another. So that was one of the main questions. A lot of the other questions were very similar, so I don't want to repeat them. But if you have a specific question about the use of logical consequences, and those are the consequences that you actually create and come up with in response to your child's behavior or choice. And in order for it to be a logical consequence, it has to be related to what happened. It needs to be reasonable. It's like, we're never coming back here. It's like, hey, we're going to leave the park for today, right? It's reasonable and it's delivered respectfully. So the tone, the volume of your voice makes a huge difference, because when this logical consequence is delivered out of anger, frustration, it immediately becomes a punishment, because then kids are focused on that and they feel scared and ashamed, and that's not going to do any teaching. So that's kind of the logical consequence. The natural consequence, like I had shared, is what happens in response to your child's behavior without you creating anything. We actually kind of have to step back and let things happen. So in the scenario where I shared that you leave to protect yourself or you pull your attention away, that's what normally would happen. You're not actually creating something or telling them to do something. You're withdrawing, and that's what would naturally happen in a situation. If somebody wasn't being very nice to you, or if a child wasn't being very nice to another child, they would withdraw. So kids get to learn from what are the reactions to my choices, my behaviors, and my emotions. It's a really powerful teaching tool, and when we use consequences right, it really creates opportunities for learning and teaching. When consequences then get a little fuzzy and up on the punishment side of the spectrum, it just creates a fear-based relationship with the child and isn't effective and doesn't help them to do better next time or repair. So I hope that you have a little bit more clarity around what consequences are, how to use them as a teaching tool, and how to stay away from punishment. It's so easy to slip into punishment, especially when we're feeling an emotional reaction as well. So it's really important that we focus on keeping our body calm, being really nonchalant, like, hey, no problem. I'm going to go step in the other room for a minute. I'll be right back. Then we can talk about what you want or why you didn't like that or why you don't want to do that, right? So a lot of this is about you, how you're communicating, and the tone of your voice. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for today. Once again, if you have questions about using consequences or you have a specific scenario that you'd like me to help you with, feel free to post it in the comments below. Please tag me, because when you tag me, you just write my name in first, then I will see your comment right away. Otherwise, there may be a little bit of a delay before I see your comment. All right. Next week, new topic. I'm open to hearing what it is that's top of mind for you. We can definitely spend some time talking about conscious parenting, which I hope all of you had an opportunity to browse today in the email I sent you last night about my experience and my learning about conscious parenting from Dr. Shefali, who I had the pleasure of spending time with just a few weeks, or 2 weeks ago, actually. It was 2 weekends ago. It's already the weekend again. So I hope to share more with you as we move on, because I'm getting reactions that this was really powerful for you. For some of you, it's not something that you've thought of before, that you think very concretely. And her perspective, these concepts, are really non-tangential. So I hope to be able to explore them more myself and share this with you. If you have questions about it, I did send you a link to her Conscious Parenting book, but I hope to be able to bring you more resources from Dr. Shefali as well. All right, everybody, have a fabulous weekend. I hope that you are mindful when things don't go well this weekend when you're with your kids, that there are opportunities to use consequences, but they're not always the best response. So being mindful that you have a toolbox of responses, hopefully at least 5 or 6 things that you can use to navigate the conversations that you have with your children. All right, everybody, take care, have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.